You're listening to If Only I Were Wiser podcast, where Reyna Wilson brings together wisdom and raw life stories to provide encouragement and truth. So many times it's easy to become discouraged in your own pursuit of health because your story or circumstances look drastically different from your favorite influencer or even the expectations you had for yourself. If that is you, welcome! This space is for you to learn, breathe, and maybe just listen and see what wellness could look like for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the If Only I Were Wiser podcast. Today's episode is going to be real short and sweet, just something fun, something light, and we're talking all things high school. I laugh a little bit just because I feel like I've been reminiscing on this cringy time of my life, just looking back to see how I felt then, my dreams, my goals, where I thought I would be now, almost 27. And it's crazy because I'm 2 years away from my 10-year reunion. So all that to say, we're diving into all things high school, a little bit about me, a little bit about my high school story and experience, but then a little bit about what you said. If you could go back and tell your high school self all the things that you needed to hear, this one's for you. I hope you guys enjoy this community episode, so let's go ahead and dive in. Now, looking back on my own personal high school experience, I can see it a little bit better with rose-colored glasses looking back now, but in the thick of it, high school was really some of the most traumatic seasons of my life. My dad was in a debilitating car accident that left him completely disabled from head to toe, and that just threw our family dynamics upside down. Like I had shared before on a previous episode, and I'll link it in the show notes, that our house was struck by lightning. And so our family lost everything my junior year of high school. I walked out of our house with, the clothes, the pajamas I had on, and I wore my neighbor's flip-flops that day. So if you want to hear more about that story in particular, I'll have that episode linked for you. But man, high school was a lot. The house fire, like I said, was one of those defining moments. I think just from an emotionally traumatic standpoint, but also some of the most beautiful parts of my life, because that's when I met Jesus. The house fire was what introduced me to a Christian community. I got plugged in through some sweet friends of mine that just really brought me out of the hole that I was in. I was really in a valley and fighting to see my value, my worth, especially when everything felt like it was falling apart. So looking back on that season now, I have a lot of fondness, just knowing that, I guess, what I crawled out of and what Jesus really pulled me out of. But for the sake of this episode and some of the feedback that I received, we'll kind of break it down into three major categories. We're going to talk about friends, we're going to talk about the cringiness of dating in high school, and then we're just going to talk about like the identity crisis that so many of you guys shared, and I can totally empathize. My own personal identity crisis that I had in high school to look back on now and just kind of laugh at myself. So we'll kick it off that way and just share some of the things that you guys shared, share a little bit about my own story, have a laugh, look back hopefully with a little bit more fondness and a little bit more grace on the cringy years of high school. So we'll kick it off that way. Let's chat friends. Honestly, that was one of the biggest themes that you guys shared about was, if I could talk to my younger self, let's talk about friend groups and how do we be healthy with our friends and to ourselves and the peer pressure and all those things. Honestly, I had, looking back, really good friends. I think the Lord gave me the people during the time that I needed for how long I needed. And I did walk through like a major friend group transition in high school for whatever reason. But looking back now, I'm thankful that the Lord did what he needed to do, because I think that there were certain people that served me in the seasons that I needed. And it was just really beautiful to look back with gratitude instead of like grumbling about some of my friend groups and the people that were in my life, because I was not in a good place. I was in a really low, but I did have people that stuck by me in the valleys for the time that I needed. When I really, I wasn't going to my parents about the depressive states or the suicidal ideation or any of the really heavy things that I was walking through, which now looking back from a ministry standpoint, and I serve and love high school students, I totally get it. But I wish I could have been a little bit more gentle to myself in leaning into that and finding confidence in not chasing after the friends that I thought would create like identity wholeness and create peace. And that's exactly what you guys said. The major theme here, of course, was you guys don't give in to what everyone else is doing. Skylar said, don't fall into the trap of trying to please other people and trying to fit in, which I know we all struggle with. Even now, I'm almost 27 and completely wrestle with comparing myself to other moms on Instagram and their families. And what are they doing in their household with their kids or their job and this and this and this, when at the root of it, it's comparison, right? It's seeing, are we enough? And asking ourselves, like, are we seen? Are we beautiful? Are we worthy? Are we valued? And that's just been something I've wrestled with in my own story, much less being 15 and 16 years old, comparing myself to the other girls in the gym locker room or on the field or in my classroom and thinking, oh, if I have these friends, then I'll be enough. Or if I have this outfit, then I'll be enough. Or if I have this kind of car, then I'll be enough. And I just want to affirm you now, as well as affirm you then, that pursuing other people's opinions of you is not going to get anywhere. And other people's opinions of you is none of your business. My dad told me that all the time in high school, and it made zero sense, makes all the sense now, but I'm super thankful for it. One of the other things that came in, Sarah said that your parents are not your enemy. Man, that one hit me so hard because, like I said, I had a core group of friends that I really processed through some of the heavy things that I was walking through at that time, because I didn't necessarily feel that I could process everything with my parents. Not that they weren't there for me, but I mean, we had a house fire, like big life things that I now understand as adult, of like insurance and cars and money and bills and everything that it takes to like quote adult, my parents were walking through. So now I have so much more grace for where their hearts and minds were in that season, because no, like they aren't my enemy, and they were trying to protect us, and they were trying to serve us and love us in the best way that they could. I have 2 younger siblings, by the way. And yeah, it wasn't apathy or dismissiveness. It was, they were doing the best that they could. And I get that now as a parent. And like I said, I know that my parents were doing their best. One of those things that really was just a struggle between my parents and I specifically was dating. And I laugh because I really don't have any cringy high school dating stories, which is really quite funny. But also it's because my parents had super strict boundaries around my communication and just my interaction with guys in general. Like, I wasn't able to go to homecoming my freshman year because, boys, and I was, 14. So I did wrestle with that for a little bit, just because everybody else was going, right? Why couldn't I go to HOCO? And I even had a date at the time, I just laugh now looking back on that. So I can't provide you with any crazy, cringy dating experiences, because I had 2 like really good relationships in high school. I know they're not my current husband now, but like I look back on those times during that season of my life with fondness, because they were great guys. I also just want to give a shout out to my guy friends and the guys that were in my life at that time, because my dad had the rule that, me being the oldest girl, if a guy wanted to talk to me, like even just for like school projects and stuff, they would have to text my dad first to ask for permission. So to all the guys, if you ever listen to this that were my guy friends or just in my life during that season, thank you for just hanging with me and sticking it out when I had a dad that loved me deeply and wanted to protect me in that way. Because like I said, as a parent, I can think now, like for my son, yeah, I'm going to completely vet every girl that ever comes in the house, and maybe he'll never get married, because no girl will ever be good enough for him. I say that all facetiously, but I get it now. But props to the guys that hung around and just were there with me through the boundaries that my parents were set. Another submission that came in on this topic specifically cracked me up. She said, dating older guys is worse than dating guys your own age, so act your age. I thought this was hilarious. Like I said, I didn't have any like super cringy dating stories. I dated guys in my grade because I had known them for a really long time and they were like friends of mine, so I had like that foundation. I, however, did date an older guy in college and it was a disaster. And I think, you know, we hear that women are usually more emotionally mature than men are, you know, by their early college teen years. I can definitely relate to that. However, I didn't date any older guys in high school. Dated older guys in college. Not great. I did act my age. So I don't know what that is. Maybe you guys can add a couple more messages or reply to this episode and just let me know. Was it just me? Is it older guys that are usually worse? I thought older guys are better. Maybe once we're out of our mid-20s, older guys are their age or act their age. Anyway, I thought that was a super funny comment and maybe somebody else needs to hear it. And when it comes to like the identity crisis conversation, the more I've reflected on this, I think it comes down to the roots of the things that I wrestled with when I was in high school are the roots of the things that I still wrestle with now. It may not be exactly, but I think in the same lens, I'm struggling with, am I valued? Am I worthy? Am I beautiful? Am I enough? But instead of like innately asking other people those questions, I think that we subconsciously do in the social media posts that we're looking at or in our feeds or the way that we speak to ourselves, the way that we speak to our spouses or our friends or our children. And it comes out of this deep insecurity of, Lord, am I enough? But I'm not asking him, you know, like I've had that conviction recently of like, I'm wrestling with these really hard heart things, but I'm not going to the Lord about them. I'm scrolling on Instagram because surely looking at prettier houses or families with multiple kids, because that's something that we desire right now, or some stability or prettier hair, you know, like clear skin, like all of these things, I've realized I'm not going to the Lord about them, but I'm feeding that insecurity by looking at other people, and I'm not even confessing it to the close people in my life. And I think this might be a level of maturity now, like I'm not 16 anymore, but I do have the softness to be able to turn to the people in my community and confess that. Do I always do it perfectly? Not at all. But at least now I've had the conviction to be able to, one, turn to the Lord and bring him those things that I'm wrestling with, along with my community. When I was 16, I was so scared to be able to admit those things to other people because I thought surely the things that I was chasing after, they could never. Right? Because it seems like they had all those things, which is crazy to say out loud, even in this recording. Like, how many of us are afraid to admit that to other people or the people that we love because we're coveting the things that they have and we can't even confess that, much less confess that to ourselves or to the Lord, who still believes that we are all those things and more. And even if we have these good desires, like we desire a baby right now, I've confessed that to friends with multiple kids, right? And some part of me, I think at the beginning was like, oh, I can't confess this to my friends because they have kids and they're not going to understand. But I think that's the beauty of maturity and not being, like I said, 16 anymore, and the softness to be able to understand that bringing insecurities, I think, to other people and to the Lord gives light and beauty and life in the way that chasing that thing doesn't provide. So I hope that encourages somebody. And like I said, I'm going to keep this episode short and sweet, but I'm going to cap it with one of the things my friend Becca said. Enjoy the season you're in and don't wish away your teenage years. If I could go back and tell 15, 16-year-old Reyna that, yes, walked through the house fire, was wrestling with boy struggles at the time and friend struggles at the time, and how am I going to go to, where am I going to go to college? Am I going to have a future? Blah, blah, blah. Those were trivial things. But I do remember thinking that once I get out of this stage, then I'll be happy. And I think that's just something that we all may struggle with. And I struggle with even now. Is like, oh, once we move out of this house and we're at this duty station, then I'll be happy. Or once we have this baby, then we'll be happy. Fill in the blank, right? Like that's one of the biggest lies that the enemy can tell us is once you get blank, then you'll be happy. When in reality, anything outside of Jesus in that blank will still not make you happy. Because happiness is based on happenings. It's not built on a foundation of joy. And that is Jesus. So, friends, I hope this episode served you. I hope it made you laugh. I hope it just brought a little bit more clarity and gentleness and fondness to look back on our high school years. And I also wanted to just close with a note of gratitude. You know, for some of us, may not talk to anybody after high school, or some of you guys may have 2 or 3 or 10 of the same friends that you did in high school. And I think that's beautiful. I think the Lord provides intentionality and wisdom and discernment of your friends when you're listening and leaning into Him. And maybe you guys are actually high school sweethearts and had an amazing dating history in high school. And I think that's so fun just to see how everybody walks through like that substantial stage of life. So if you have any topics or conversations or just fun little stories you want to send in, please reply to this episode. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. I would love to talk about it. I love doing these like little one-off episodes just because they're a refresh for me. They're light, they're fun, they're a way to get our community engaged. And just thank you guys. At the end of the day, you guys are the ones that are listening. You guys are the reason why I do this podcast, because if only I were wiser, right? If only I were wiser in high school or in motherhood or postpartum or trying to have a baby or trying to eat healthy and move, you know, the heart of If Only I Were Wiser was to truly bring hope and light and encouragement to the seasons where we probably weren't as wise as we wish we were. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but thank you guys. Thank you for listening. And I do have Joseph coming up on another community listening episode. We're going to be talking about all things boundaries with family, friends. It's such a fun topic that many of you guys requested, just some of the specifics, because you guys apparently love Joseph on the podcast. So that will be coming soon. Make sure to listen. Follow on Instagram if you guys want to stay connected. Check out my Return to Rest resource if you guys haven't yet, because I will be sharing more about rest, what that has looked like in the season of my life where I feel like I've had no rest, and how the Lord has divinely and intimately corrected me on that. So that's coming soon, but thank you guys for listening, and I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening, friend. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you don't want to miss any wisdom or encouragement, be sure to subscribe to the show. And don't forget to rate and review. Your feedback means so much and helps our community grow. If you're looking for more wellness wisdom and free resources, head over to livingwiselywell.com or get connected with me on Instagram at wiselywell. And if you're looking for a break from the hurried health lifestyle, check out my Return to Rest resource for tangible ways to slow down and finally find rest.